Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 129. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews. Goes a long way towards getting new listeners, especially in a major week, and it is a major week. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, and down in the comment section, very simple, let me know who was your favorite bet for the PGA Championship, because that's what we're going to be talking about this week. Quickly, we can go into the Wells Fargo and Rory running away with it, but we're probably more so just going to weave that into the context, because today we're going to be diving into the Draftkings player pool. Really just want to hone in on some of the players that we're going to be targeting for DFS. And joining me, we have Dave Utnick. Dave, how we doing?
Hey, good to be back.
And Mike Carpanini, the Casual Corner. How we doing, Mike?
Boys, how are you now?
So yeah, basically we're just going to dive right into the player pool. Quickly we'll go into the course, but probably break that a little bit more down in depth tomorrow, and we'll just weave it into the conversation, as I said, because I really want to focus on as much of the player pool as we possibly can, kind of go player by player here and just compare these guys and kind of see where we stand on them. So did you guys catch any of the Wells Fargo? Because I mean, the final round, I didn't get to see much. Obviously, it was Mother's Day, and I was out with the wife and kids, so didn't get to see Rory run away with it. But Dave, what about you? You see any of it?
I turned it on, saw he had a 5-shot lead, turned it off. It was Mother's Day. It was flipping through the channels and wasn't worth watching. But good to see Rory win another one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he ran away with it. Xander did Sunday Xander things, which means he didn't do much of anything. So, but Mike, what about you? You catch any of it? Any thoughts?
No. I mean, I was keeping track of it on my phone, but I didn't really watch anything. Rory seemed to have it mostly in control all day.
Yeah, basically, I got back. I think there was 3 holes left, and I didn't even bother really. So, but obviously Rory did run away with it, and it was basically just Rory and Xander, and everybody else just basically shit all over their leg, because it was, the course played very difficult. I mean, you wouldn't tell by the way Rory played, but I don't know how much I really want to take away from the tournament as far as making decisions this week. I do think that a lot of people will use it against or for some guys here, though, in the field. So let's just jump into the field. Obviously, it starts at the top, as it always does. We're in a major, 13,200 for Scotty Scheffler, and he's had his baby now, and that's in the rearview mirror. Maybe he hasn't been getting a ton of sleep, but he's still Scotty Scheffler. So it's pretty expensive, but with the 5K range, I definitely think it's affordable. It's just a matter of whether or not you like the balance build compared to the Scotty builds. But why don't we just start there? Mike, what are you doing with Scotty?
All Scotty. I want all the Scotty, all of it. Like I might be 100% Scotty.
100%? I mean, I could see it. I don't see any reason not to. I probably have enough lineups where I don't necessarily. Go ahead.
Yeah, like there might be a couple that you just kind of, get creative on, and but like look at his last 12 months. Like it's just he's paying off at every single week, even at 13,000. He's paying off. Like he is going to just go out there and win the tournament 70% of the time, and when he doesn't, he's basically still top 5.
How low does he have to finish to pay off, or how high, I guess, is a better way of asking that.
I guess it depends on what the other guys do, but I mean, I'd say at a minimum, he's probably got to finish in the top 8 at least for you to even be remotely happy.
Yeah, I mean, he's got
the top of the board ends up as the top of the board, and I think you can get away with, like you said, 8th. If it's a 2024 and somebody comes up way from the bottom where you have a chance to have a lot of the top end of that leaderboard at the end, then the payoff is significantly higher. It's got to be 2 or 3. So it depends where the winner is. It depends what the rest of the top 5 looks like.
I mean, I feel like we've had this conversation week after week, and yeah, I mean, he's on an ungodly run at the moment. But even his quote unquote bad starts are, top 10, top 15.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not killing you there either. Where, I mean, maybe Mike's casual takes of 100% Scotty are actually the right ones this time, because we start game theorying, is that a word? Our ways out of
Sure.
this. But each and every week, he's the best player on the planet. He's putting up ridiculous numbers. We talk about all the pivots that we want to play instead. And I personally don't think he's going to win this tournament. He seems to win all the other ones, but maybe just playing Scotty is just the safest play known to man.
I could certainly see it. And I mean, you can make cases
Um,
against them and poke holes this week, but it's hard to get away from them. What were you going to say, Mike? Huh?
I'm totally good. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's your internet cutting out or mine. I think it's mine. But I'm totally good just jamming Scotty and going 5v5 the rest of the way. Like until he shows me something, a reason not to, like I'll just play the field 5v5.
Yeah, I think it's a sound strategy, but the other thing is you do have to get those other five guys right, because just we've seen it. There's been tournaments where Scotty finishes second, or even where he wins, and people with Scotty lineups are still dead because you have to go further down the board. So it's it's going to be a matter of where these other guys finish, and I'd say if you ever could poke holes in Scotty, maybe now is a time. Just took a week off. He just had a baby. It's going to be his first time away from the baby, so maybe that affects him a little bit. Also, I mean, we didn't mention it off the top, but Valhalla is a very, very long course. It's driver heavy. I do think that distance is going to play quite a bit of a difference. Really, I don't know how much the scrambling is going to come into play. I like him more at a U.S. Open, maybe Pinehurst setup. The Masters played more to his favor. I just think a little bit of what Scotty does better than the entire field is maybe mitigated a little bit here, if that makes any sense. Don't all jump in at once now.
I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I can start talking. I mean, if you look at, Scotty's run really, even at last year, and it's not the same type of run, but he plays really well in the beginning of the season up until about May.
Yeah.
So if there is any reason to start doubting Scotty, and I'm not saying there is one, but like you said, he just had the baby. He missed the cut at the PGA Championship in 2022. I'm looking at the wrong year. But I mean, he was second last year. I don't know. We're going to talk about outrights. I mean, DraftKings should just start giving us pricing without Scotty. It'll make the game a lot more fun.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do think that's a good point. There's a lot of these guys here. I mean, Rory coming off the win and almost, I mean, it's a team event, but kind of back to back wins. I don't think in the grand scheme of things the team event means much, but to him it clearly does. He's got the confidence, and granted, we've seen him win the week before a major several times and then come and not do too great in that major. But last time he was at Valhalla, he won the week before and then came out and won the PGA Championship. So I think right now Rory is clicking on all cylinders. I think his confidence is at an all-time high. The fact that they didn't want him on the player advisory board is probably a chip on his shoulder. And I think you could make a case for Rory over Scotty this week. But then from a DraftKings standpoint, a lot of people might be doing so. So it's going to be really interesting to see what these guys' ownership comes in at. Because if you can get a low-owned Scotty and everybody's going to Rory, I mean, we've seen Rory falter enough in majors, and I do love him this week. I think it's a great spot for him. But if you're getting Scotty at a significantly lower ownership, it's going to be hard not to go to Scotty.
It's going to have a lot to do with, how you want to build out your roster. And again, you're going to start Galaxy branding yourself. I mean, you just look at his recent results. I mean, calendar, this in 2024, his worst finish is a 17th. He's got a 23rd and a 31st over the summer last year. But outside of that, he hasn't finished outside the top 10 in like almost or in the top 15 in like 2 years. It's his numbers are absolutely ridiculous, and
Yep.
it's just I think we are playing just a 5 versus 5 at this point. Um, I think I'm going to be really heavy Scotty, but I also have bet other players to win, so we'll talk through those guys also.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like I said, I think Rory right now I do like quite a bit, but not going to be able to fit all these guys up here because I think John Rahm goes completely overlooked. Playing and live hasn't won yet over there. Comes top 10 every week, but I mean, how significant is that really considering the fields and but I do think for him it's been an adjustment period. He went over there and nobody gives a shit. Nobody's there. Nobody's watching him. So I do think in some ways he might even regret his decision. And then didn't look great at the Masters. Obviously, defending champs do tend to have a little bit of a tough time from time to time there with all the media obligations. Then the fact that it's his first Masters while he's on a live roster, I'm sure that made it pretty weird. But he's still one of the best golfers in the world, and coming in here, I could see him with a huge chip on his shoulder. I've bet Rahm. When was the last time we saw him at 20-1? I saw it, and I absolutely had to jump on that. So he was one of the first outrights I made. I have Rahm at 20-1, but I really want to play all three of those guys, which probably means that there's no room for Xander. And I've also bet Koepka at 20-1, and I think he's probably one of the most popular plays here. So you can make a case for a lot of these guys up top this week, and it's going to be interesting. And I think a lot of lineups are going to be won and lost with these decisions. So, Mike, what are you thinking at the top? Like who are you leaning towards?
I just don't. I'm not kidding. Like I'm going to be 90% Scotty. So I just
Fair enough.
don't think I'm going to be here. If I want some exposure to it, I think throwing a couple bucks at their outrights is the way I'm going to try to get there. DK's being fucky with me right now, so I can't even see their odds. But they got to be lower, significantly better than what Scotty is. Scotty's got to be damn near even fucking money at this point. So I just don't think I would love to be able to get Xander in a couple of lineups. I just don't think it's going to happen. Rahm, I don't think I think you nailed it. I think he's bored with golf right now because it's just not the same, and problem is you're saying the competition over there, it's the same thing with the competition over here. Like these I don't know if you were trying to get into it or not, but these fucking tours, both of them, just I'm over it. Like it's bad golf all around. Like I'm over TV golf at this point.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I am so excited for the PGA Championship. It is just we get these guys all together, and you have Scotty doing what Scotty's done. You have Rory what he's done, coming off of basically back-to-back wins and at an all-time high in confidence. You have Brooks coming off a win. It's just the perfect time where these guys are clicking at the right moment, and hopefully we get some of these guys at the leaderboard come Sunday. But Dave, what are you thinking at the top?
I mean, salary aside, and the more I'm looking at just recent results from Scotty, the more I just want to play. I'm not going to be 100%, but really heavy into them. It's really a 1v1 versus all of them. Roster construction as we get further down is going to have a lot more to say about this than which guys at the top do you like. But Scotty for me, Brooks for me, Xander's playing really good golf, but you have to almost bank on him finishing ahead of one of these top 5 guys and somebody from lower in the pack winning, because Xander doesn't win tournaments because he melts on Sundays. But, this is still DraftKings. It's not, who's the most likely to win because, like Mike said, I mean, Scotty's got to be what, 3-1, 4-1 at this point? I mean, that's ridiculous.
I think he's
for a golf
the best I saw was 450.
Yeah, I mean, and there are other guys that we all want to see win outside of Scotty. But Scotty is not going to hurt your DraftKings lineup unless it's completely salary based. But in terms of general interest, I bet Brooks also. Really like the way that he's playing, and Rory, and Rory's at $1,200 less than Scotty. And at the end of the day, we are looking for Rory just to beat Scotty, and Rory's on a little bit of a run too. So I could probably talk myself into that. Rahm, he was a really easy fade at the Masters that I didn't take, and I think it's looking around the same. So, no John Rahm for me on this one.
Yeah, as of now, I think I'm probably going to play some Rahm, but if him and Xander are close in ownership, maybe go Xander. But like you said, I mean, the case for Xander is you're not thinking he's going to win. You're just thinking, he does his usual, comes top 5, maybe 6th place, and these guys maybe fail, and someone from further down the board wins, and you have them in your lineup. That's basically the case for Xander. But with him losing last week and with that narrative around him, I could see his ownership coming in a little bit lower. So I do see Rahm and Xander being the lower owned up here. I think Koepka's definitely going to be the highest owned, just at a great salary price point, and just it's Koepka at a major, so I do think he's the highest owned here. And then we have Aubert, dealing with a knee issue, withdrew last week. A lot of people think that it's basically just precautionary because he didn't want to risk being injured this week. But I've actually heard reports that he's walking around the course, and after a couple drives, he's sitting there rubbing the knee. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of an issue it is. Because of that, he's probably pretty low owned. So it sucks because I wish that he was healthy. We saw him in his first major at the Masters come out and play very well. And I think this is a course that absolutely could fit his skill set. So definitely want to monitor that going into the week a little bit more and see where the knee is. Maybe we can even hear him talk about it at some point. That would be nice. But Dave, why don't you sell me on Morikawa here?
Also for a bear, I saw reports he's playing with a brace on also. So if that's new and he's, there's really something going on where he's not himself, at this price point, he's an easy fade. But Morikawa's not, I'm a Morikawa guy. He's showing signs of life, finally. In this course, you're looking at long irons. You're looking at a guy that's going to be able to hit fairways. He hasn't put it all together yet for 4 rounds, but we're seeing signs of life. I bet him at 34-1. It's a number, usually in years past, over 30 was an auto bet for me for Morikawa. He's got 2 majors already. I could see him getting lightning hot with his irons and, signs of the old Colin Morikawa and putting together, a tournament where we're taking down, Goliath at this point.
Yeah, I'm a huge Morikawa fan as well. As you said, he's got majors in the bag already, so got that going for him. I'm not crazy about the course fit. When he did win his PGA, it was a little bit shorter of a course. I do think he could play well here, finding fairways. And it's just weird though, because lately it's been totally off the tee and putting for him, which he's lost strokes on approach in 5 straight events, which that is not Morikawa at all. So, maybe he's that good of a ball striker that he can turn the irons back on at any minute, but that for me just scares me a little bit. So I'm probably going to stay away from him here, which I hate doing because I love Morikawa and he tends to show up at the bigger events. But Mike, what are you thinking in this range here?
I'm probably coming down a little bit further and finding the Bombers. Bryson at 9.6, Wyndham Clark 9.5, even Cam Young at 9 flat. Again, I'm looking for savings everywhere. So if this is, ends up being as high as I can get, which it very well may be, like you said, Valhalla's going to play long, and maybe one of them finds a lot of fairways, makes the game easy for themselves, finds a way to put it together, but. I'm going to be looking for length in a lot of these guys. God, I got so many pause moments today. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll get to Bryson in a minute and why I'm wearing this goofy hat. But I actually think that Cantlay could possibly be in play here at only 10,000. I just, it's a guy that plays well on Nicklaus courses. He's a great bent grass putter. Showed some signs of life here recently. 29th last week isn't great, but played a little bit better on Sunday. He was 3rd at the Heritage. So it hasn't been a good year for him, but I do think it's a good fit and just a little bit of signs of life. I think you can make a case for him here, and I don't think anybody's going to play him because of how bad he's been this year. So I'd actually be fine playing Cantlay in some larger field GPPs. Cam Smith, I don't think this is a course for him at all. Now, granted, the man can just go nuclear with the putter, and maybe he ends up getting up there on the weekend, but I really I don't see it. Homa, the fact that he didn't really play well in majors for a while, but in his last two actually has showed up. It's a guy that plays these big events pretty well. He can hold his own. Maybe doesn't really have the off the tee game that you want, but I think Homa could show up here potentially. And then Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, I'm wearing the hat. I've always been a huge Bryson fan and was actually pissed when he went to live. And when he went to live, he was dealing with some injuries, playing like absolute shit. But we just saw him at the Masters. He has 3 top 10s this year on live. The guy is just an absolute monster off the tee, and that is exactly what you want here. I think we could see similar to his US Open win, where he is just bombing it so much further than everyone. And if this rough is going to be long and penal, and they've been getting a lot of rain, so it's going to be thick. I mean, he can just have an advantage like he did at Winged Foot, and he's hitting wedge while everybody else is hitting their longer iron. So I love DeChambeau. I bet him at 28-1, and I will be playing a ton of him in DraftKings. And I think similarly, I like Wyndham Clark as well. He's also got the distance off the tee. I think last week is going to scare some people away from him, but it's one tournament. He didn't play well there, but he's 5th in driving distance in this field, and he's also gotten around the green game. These greens are pretty small, so if he's missing greens, he can scramble as well. So I like Wyndham Clark also. But Dave, what are you thinking in this top 9K range?
Like all the names that you said, I mean, I'm starting to talk myself into Bryson, but the one thing that really, in terms of, it's not just distance. I mean, I think good drives gained is going to be a big part of this also. The fairway accuracy is going to be important when the rough is this long. But, I mean, Bryson just, when he is bombing, and he's just so much longer than anyone else on tour, tough to talk yourself out of that one, especially when we know that distance is going to be important, to the extent, that it's going to be super important. And, is it going to be the most key stat there? I'm not exactly sure. I do think that fairways are really going to be that kind of difference maker there, where even a Cam Smith could actually compete at 9,800. It's just a little too expensive for me. I'm not necessarily a Cam Smith guy to begin with. I like your take on Cantlay. I mean, nobody likes to play him when he's playing good. So when he's playing poorly, his ownership's going to be, non-existent. Wyndham Clark,
I could see Cantlay being somewhere around 5%. Like I could definitely see him being that low owned.
I mean, nobody wants to root for him to actually win a major. He's one of the least liked players on tour. So week after week, he's one of those guys where his ownership always comes in lower. And, like you said, he's been showing a little bit of signs of life. But, do you really want to root for Patrick Cantlay for 4 days? That's a decision you got to make. But really, I think you hit on each of these guys here. Homa, I feel like Homa's turned a corner. I really liked him at the Masters and didn't play enough of him. I think that he is going to start to pop in majors, and he will eventually get his first. He'll probably end up on that last one in, last one out list for me.
Yeah, he's going to be a tough decision because I definitely am playing Bryson and Wyndham. And if I'm playing a couple more guys up top, I'm going to have to skip over some guys here. Cam Smith, you made a very good point with the fairways. I definitely think fairways are going to come into play quite a bit here. But I think it's more so with the shorter hitters. They are absolutely going to have to be in the fairway here. And I mean, fairway percentage is above tour average here, about 65%. So a lot of people will be in the fairways. I just think that the longer you are, the less important it is. And Cam Smith, he's 133rd in fairways gained in this field. I mean, there's PGA pros that are better at finding fairways than Cam Smith. So just how wild he gets off the tee, I can't go there at all.
Do you have
But
Live Singapore in your numbers there? Because that could really skew things.
I did look at his fairways gain number, and he is towards the bottom of the live roster. So we'll just leave it at that.
Is that individual or team?
That's it. If you go to their the default is the team stats, but you have to click on players because the team stats come first. But make sure you click on players when you're on the live website.
And just to be clear, they're not
Liv
playing
has a
teams
website?
this week, right? They don't compete as teams this week, right?
No. Their team live this week. I do actually like quite a bit of the live guys. Speaking of which, I think Neiman can play very well here. He's been having an incredible year. The guy's great with his long irons. It is someone that can find fairways. He's good off the tee. I think Neiman actually is a very good play here. He hasn't been great in majors, so I don't have the most confidence in him. But from a course fit standpoint and just, how well he's been playing this year, I definitely think you can make a case for Neiman here. Justin Thomas already has 2 PGA championships to his credit. I saw a stat too. He's actually one of the best golfers in the field on Zoysia grass, which they just switched Valhalla to. So maybe he gets his irons going off of these Zoysia grass fairways, and he's actually not too short off the tee either. So I do like Thomas there. And then Hovland showed signs of life last week. This place, you're going to miss green, so around the green is going to come into play. But scrambling isn't all that difficult here. So, I mean, maybe he can manage. And if he's hitting the greens, hitting his irons well, like we saw last week, you can make a case for him. And just with how terrible he's been playing, I don't see him being very popular. Zalatoris, I don't know what happened last week. He looked okay for a minute, and then all of a sudden is shooting an 80. And just, I don't know if the back is actually an issue. Guy that tends to show up for majors. So I wanted to play him, but just last week really kind of threw a wrench in things, and I'm not sure. I'm gonna see what his ownership is going to be and whether or not I want to go there. Probably going to play Cam Young though at 9,000 flat. Mike, you said it before. I do think this is a good course for him. It's a guy that in his young career has continued to show up at majors. So I actually like Cam Young. I don't play him often, but I am going to play him here. Mike, was there anything you wanted to add on any of these guys here?
I'm too much of a fan of JT to fade completely, and he does have those 2 prior victories. Like he's one. Like I'm just a fan. Like I have nothing to go off of here saying it. Like he could very well miss the cut here, but I do like the JT call for no real actual scientific reasons, just because I like JT.
Yeah, I mean, you like the major prowess, the fact that he's won PGA championships before, but I mean, he missed the cut at the Masters, but then came right back out and came 5th at the Heritage. Didn't have a chance to really win it. He played all right, 21st last week. He's gained off the tee and on approach in both of those tournaments. So I think he's playing pretty good golf here and has a little bit of confidence going into the Masters. I don't think it was the same, especially it was odd timing of him breaking up with Bones. So I like him here. Dave, what are you thinking down in this 9K range?
I'm with you guys on JT. He's got a new caddy. He's got a new driver. He's won 2 PGAs in the past. I think I called even one of them on your show the last time he won it. He's just playing really well. And, like Mike said, this is still a major championship where I'm going to be engaged in watching golf. I have not really been paying much attention since the Masters, just the way things have been rolling out there. I'm going to want to watch a lot of golf this week, and I'm going to want to see JT play well. So I'm in on JT. And if you think of, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I don't know where time is at this point. I think this is a great buy low opportunity on Victor Hovland. Talent-wise, I mean, he's not a $9,200 player. He is usually, at one point he was top 2, top 3 in terms of DraftKings pricing as he was on his run last year. 9,200, I think, is a great price for him. Liked what I saw on Sundays. I mean, he's played god awful this year, but he also played really well at the Masters, if I remember correctly. And, I think there's just guys that you're going to want to play in majors. Will Zalatoris is another one. Health is good, the biggest concern with him, as is, Hideki when we get down there, although that's, a ways to go still. But there are guys you usually just want to play in majors, and Will Zalatoris, Victor Hovland, those are, definitely names I want to be playing when major season comes around.
Yeah. And you're right. They just continue to show up in these majors. And at this price, I think it's a good price for where they've been finishing in those majors. If we move down a little bit further and into the higher eights, I think this is going to be a dead range. I don't think a lot of people are going to go here. I don't think Fitzpatrick, the way he's been playing, is warranted him even being up here. So he's a no for me. Spieth just looks absolutely broken. Now, granted, maybe he can turn it on and you get him at a low ownership, but I don't think I can go there. Fleetwood is a perfect example of what I was saying before, of guys that can find the fairway here. He doesn't have a ton of distance, but he can strike his irons fairly well, although recently he hasn't been doing too great. But I think he can find enough fairways here. If maybe the wind picks up, he can scramble around this place. You can make a case for him. I don't know that I'm going to get there on him, but I also like Hideki. I mean, obviously, it's an issue every time. He could withdraw at any given moment. He's clearly hurt. He's never really 100%, but how many times have we seen this from Hideki? It's everybody's terrified of playing him, that nobody's going to play him. Last week he was chalk basically and withdrew. So that's going to get everybody off him. And then he'll just show up and he'll top 10. So at 8,600, I think it's actually worth a chance. I mean, maybe he withdraws on you again or just is hurt and not playing well, but if he's okay and can make it through the entire tournament, the caliber of golfer that Hideki has been this year at 8,600 at probably a low ownership, it makes sense. But
what is wrong with Hideki in terms of injury?
I think it's actually, at this point, I think it might actually be nerve damage. I think it stems from his back and his neck, and he's actually losing feeling, and I think it was his leg and his hand, I read.
Yeah, it's not good.
So no, it's kind of hard to hold on to and swing clubs when you can't feel. So
yeah, we don't get real injury reports, and I mean, listen, it is a game of volatility, right? If you want to lean into it, Hideki's a great play for it, but I don't know if you want a guy that's going to have a high chance of withdrawing. I mean, think back to Jason Day. You couldn't ever roster him with any type of good conscience because whether he was going to Disneyland or he was just hurt, he was just showing up and leaving.
That's the truth. Dave, what are you thinking in this upper 8K range?
Same as you here. There's just not much to like. Fitzpatrick, his results haven't been terrible, but he hasn't really flashed at all. He is a major champion. Jordan Spieth's game is broken. Tommy's always way too popular for what I'd like him to be, and I'm not usually a Tommy guy, but gets good distance, hits a lot of fairways, plays well in the majors. I could see myself being talked into that, but it's really about in this range. I mean, I've been playing a lot of Shane Lowry. He finally got half a win with Rory a couple weeks ago. Actually liked him last week also. But he's kind of tough, especially when the putter just, fails him. 3-putt avoidance, he's one of the worst in the field, as is Tony Finau, who's right there with him, and his game just doesn't look right at the moment either. I bet to hit the gala. I think he is, an up-and-coming player here, does a lot of the right things. You're going to be looking at, long irons, things of that nature here. So I like Sahith, but I think you might have the key to winning a Draftkings tournament between 8,000 and 8,900 because this is a real flyover zone.
Yeah, I could see one of these guys showing up, but I can make too many cases against him. Burns hasn't been great. He looked better last week, but it's mainly he's got a little bit off the tee, but it's mainly putter with him. I just don't see this being a great venue for him. Hasn't really been good too much at majors anyway. Lowry and Finau can't putt point blank, period. And I just don't think that's going to fly here. Hatton, I like him a little bit more. It's only Monday, so I don't really want to get into the weather too much, but there could be a little bit of rain, a little bit of wind. If that's going to be the case, I actually like Hatton and maybe Fleetwood in this range, and you get two lower owned guys in this range, and maybe build a lineup for a little bit more sloppy conditions. But I'm with you on Thigala. I bet him at 90-1. I just think since his win in the swing season, he is an absolutely different caliber of golfer. He's improved tremendously off the tee, 19th off the tee in the last 24 rounds. He's great at avoiding the bogeys. It was odd last week seeing him struggle around the greens, but I mean that's such a rarity. You would think that he could bounce right back from that. So I like Thigala quite a bit, and I'm going to play some DJ. I don't know how much. He hasn't really looked great, but I just think Dustin Johnson on a course like this could definitely show up. So that's really all I'm looking at in the 8K range. Mike, what about you? Anybody stand out in the 8Ks?
Sahith. Like that's a little disappointing to see both of you. I understand why you're both going there, but I was hoping. I think my lineup starts Scotty and then Sahith. Couple names that I not that I'm totally on board with, but I'm not as scared off of as you guys are. I'll dabble in some Finau and I'll dabble in some Sam Burns. Like I'm not going out of my way for either one of them, but I'm not petrified to get them in there, especially if I do end up way too overweight on Sahith. But yeah, like you said, it's not anything. This zone is just not where we're going to be.
No, and it's going to be interesting to see when you're building lineups how many times you fall in this range and just go fuck. I got to either change something or bite the bullet on one of these guys. But if we move down to the 7K range, I think there's some guys here that I can stomach. And, I wanted to focus on the top of the board there, but we can kind of pick and choose a little bit more here. But I like Sung J M. He's been playing much better golf, obviously won over in Korea, withdrew the next week, but looked okay last week. So I think he's back at 7,900. I think that's a good price for him. Benny On has a lot of what you like for this course. So, I mean, he's top 20 in strokes gained off the tee. He's first in driving distance over the last 24 rounds. So definitely like that. He's good on the par fives, great from 200 plus yards, which you're going to have over a third of approach shots coming from there. So I like Benny On. Just kind of want to see, because statistically he does stand out, where his ownership gets. Siwoo Kim, I think at this price, if he just continues to do what he's been doing, it's weird. We always saw Siwoo as this boom bust guy, but lately he's just basically just sitting there in the top 25. And if that's what he's going to do at this price in this field, I think that's absolutely fine. You can make a case for Minwoo Lee. I think some people will because of his distance, but I just don't really get there too often on him. And then probably really not playing a lot of guys in this mid-7 range. So I don't know. Dave, can you sell me on any of these guys?
No, I was trying to check in to see what Patrick Reed has done on Live Tour. Looks like not much, but I ended up on his personal website. It's called goteamreed.com. You should give that a look. It's absolutely hilarious. There's just Sanjay, to me, I haven't seen it for long enough. I know he played well last week. I know he won in Korea. I don't know what the field looked like, but he was
Probably not great.
just so bad for so long here that I don't know if I believe it just yet. Benny N, I like a lot what you said also. I understand what he did at the Masters, but I think that, majors in general are a little, too high class for him at this point, or those are too tough of a tournaments. 67th at Heritage and what I believe was an elevated event. Missed the cut of the players. There's something about this field that scares me with him, but he does check all the boxes, like you were saying. Minwoo Lee, Siwoo Kim, great. Those are guys I just play a lot of anyway. And I mean, Corey Connors, I could be talked into. He's going to be good with his irons here. He's going to hit fairways. But a lot of the guys around him just don't have the distance. I mean, Brian Harmon's going to have to play from the ladies' tees if he wants to compete. There's just not, and I'm not following anything that Taylor Gooch does. He bitched and moaned and found his way in the field. I hope he finishes dead fucking last.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm not going to be playing Gooch. I'm not going to be rooting for Gooch. Now, if he does come out here and balls out, then good for him. I mean, what is going on over there?
That one was me. The first one was the dog.
Jesus Christ, Mike.
I muted
that's
myself in between when no one was making extra noise.
Oh,
So,
that's
good
wonderful.
on me there.
Well, I mean, basically that completely encapsulated my feelings on Taylor Gooch. So well played, good timing. But Mike, what do you think in the 7K range here?
Give me both the woos. Like, you guys are not, I want Min Woo and I want Si Woo. Like, I like Dave, I play a lot of each of them every week anyway, but it's a little bit gross down here. And this is where a lot of my lineups have to start, unfortunately, after Scotty. So yeah, give me Min Woo, give me Si Woo. I'll dabble in some Connors. Hojgaard, I think you could do worse, and I think a lot of people are going to be scared off after his last showing. Batia, I'll dabble in. Jaeger, I'll dabble in. Like I think you got some dudes here.
Yeah, the lower 7K range, I love. I love Batia. I'm hoping the poor performance last week scares some people off because he's been getting very popular, but he has a ton of what you like here. I mean, he's been great on approach. He can hit it pretty good off the tee, good on the par 5 scoring. He's good with the long irons. He actually won here as a child in the kids PGA Championship. So, I mean, there's a lot to like with Batia there. I like the Jaeger call. It's just a guy, despite the fact that he isn't great with those irons or approach shots from over 200 yards, he plays long courses very well. He's very good off the tee. He makes up for missed greens with around the green game. He's been playing good golf. I am definitely in on Jaeger. I think Keegan Bradley can show up here. It's a guy that hasn't been great this year, but playing a little bit better golf here recently. He's won many tournaments on bent grass greens, so we know he can get it going with the putter on these bent grass surfaces. And just with the year he's having, I don't see him getting too high up there in ownership. And then another live guy, Dean Burmeister, he can mash it off the tee. He's been playing very well on live. Had a couple nice finishes over there. So I don't think a lot of people go to him either. So those are a couple guys down in this lower 7K range. I think they fit very well in Scotty lineups, or even if you're just trying to play a couple guys from up top, a little bit of a mid-range salary saver there. Dave, was there anything that standed out to you down in this range?
Yeah, I mean, I like the guys that you already said. We're not going to rehash on any of them. Alex Noren, really good for top 20s each week. Doesn't really have the distance that you'd like here, but hits enough fairways to get by, and he really can grind it out. So I like Noren here, and Adam Scott. Does have some of the distance here. A established player, major champion. We've got real pedigree here at 6,300. And just looking at Højgaard, I mean, I know he didn't have the end of a great final round on Sunday at the Masters, but he missed a cut at Punta Cana a week later. I mean, that's like one extreme to the other. So I'm out on Højgaard. We didn't bring him up at all the last time we all came together, but are either of you going to play Tiger Woods?
I was just going to say it, and I actually think I am. I mean, this is obviously a course where he's had success before. I don't think that there's heavy elevation changes where he's going to have to be going up and downhill as much. So maybe a little bit easier of a walk. And from everything I've seen, I mean, people drool over Tiger anyway, but they're saying he's looking really good on the course. So I think I'm willing to go there. And at 6,800, I think it's an okay price for him. Probably not going to play a lot of him, but he will probably be in the player pool.
Yeah, I don't know. he's just not long enough these days. Like it's crazy to say, if you remember early Tiger Woods when he was out driving everybody by 30, 40 yards, but he's just not moving it like the other dudes are. Like so he's going to be playing from behind on every single hole, and I think that wears on him eventually.
But the one thing is, he's a guy I think strategically he will make sure he finds the fairway here.
Oh yeah,
And
I mean, I have no question he could manage his way around a golf course. Like he's one of the greatest
but
golf minds
all
ever lived.
and also even in this field at his age, he's still in the top third of the field from 200 plus yards with the irons. So he can mash those long irons still. So if he's in the fairway, he's probably still finding a good amount of greens, and we know that he can find his way around a course. And at this price, we're probably the PGA has been playing a lot more like the US Open the past couple of years. So we're not looking at a minus 20 score here. I mean, if he can even sit somewhere around 2 under and finish the tournament there, it could pay off at only $6,800. So like I said, I'm not going to play a lot of him, but I'm not completely opposed to it. Mike, what do you like here though in the top sixes other than Tiger?
Keith Mitchell, following the theme of my day, just dudes who could, really move the golf ball. He's also been playing relatively okay for the most part this year. Nothing super, fancy, but just steady other than a few missed cuts. One that might shock you is Kurt Kitayama. He's just kind of hanging
Doesn't shock
around
me at
every
all.
week. One of those dudes who does nothing real super special, but you look up and same thing. Like he's just on leaderboards making cuts. So, especially when I'm gonna have to be down here somewhere, I think Kitty might get in a bunch of my lineups.
No, I actually like Kitayama quite a bit. I actually could see him being one of the higher owned down here. Not necessarily high owned just in general, but higher owned for this range, I'd say. And I like the Keith Mitchell call. I mean, just the guy is just a great ball striker. He has a little bit of distance to him. So definitely like him here. Cam Davis is a guy that scares the shit out of me, but I don't know. He just tends to randomly show up in these spots. Probably can't get there on him. Aaron Rye's been playing good golf, but I don't know how much this course really suits him. But it's a guy that can find the fairway. He's great on approach. He's good at with the 200 plus yard mark. So I think you can maybe make a case for Aaron Rye here. And then I don't know if Hoagie can make enough putts, but down at 6,400 can make a case for him with how good of a ball striker he is. I actually like Horschel quite a bit. He's been playing better golf recently. 6,200 I think is a good price for him, but really not crazy about this lower 6K range and especially the 5K range. But Dave, what are you thinking here?
Like a lot of the names that you said, Kitayama is definitely not going to be a slide play. I think, a lot of people are going to gravitate towards him. A couple other names you guys haven't mentioned. Ryan Fox finished top 3 last week at Myrtle Beach. Golf is still hard. Stringing around top finishes together is important. So he might be worth a look, and he always seems to pop up in major championships a lot also. Like to call him Keith Mitchell. Jake Knapp, Taylor Moore, guys that are going to give you some distance here, decent on, long irons where a lot of the stuff is going to come into play here. And we already talked about one of the olds. I might sprinkle in Phil into my player pool also. And I usually don't do things like that, but he played well here whenever it was 96 or whenever the last time they were at Valhalla was.
2014.
Okay, I guess 96 was way too old. I think he played well in 96 for what it's worth, guys. But
He was still in college in '96.
Pulled up the wrong article as we were scrambling here. I just think when we are talking major championships, that experience does matter. And at 6,100 versus the guys that are around him, I think he's worth a play down here. Bobby Mack also played pretty well last week, but I fall into that trap. religiously. And then I'll let you guys kick off the fives because I haven't looked at them yet.
Yeah, there's a couple guys in the fives that I like. Quickly, I will say too, Taylor Pendrith has been playing very good golf. He looks to be healthy. He's a guy that has some distance off the tee. I mean, the irons are shit, but if he can have that off the tee game and putting carry him at 6K flat, I don't think that's a terrible play. Mav McNeely, I mean, not crazy about him, but I think you could do worse down here in the 5K range. So 5,900 for him, I think, is all right. I actually like Mackenzie Hughes quite a bit. I mean, this is basically you're getting Jordan Spieth for what, $3,000 less. So, and he's in much better form. So I actually like Mackenzie Hughes. He can definitely scramble around this golf course and actually isn't too terrible off the tee. So I think he's pretty good here. Great putter also. He's actually really good on par five scoring. So I think Hughes will actually be my favorite play in the 5K range. Mark Hubbard, maybe. Just a guy that can live in the fairway, pretty good ball striker. So maybe make a case for him there. I think Patrick Rogers is actually a pretty good play here. Bent grass is by far his best surface, so he can definitely putt on these greens. He's got a little bit of distance to him and pretty good off the tee. He's been playing pretty good golf here recently as well. So 5,600 for him. That's probably the lowest I would go. But Mike, you got anything in the 5K range?
Nothing I like. Hubbard, I think, is a good one if you're stuck there. I think if you're stuck there, you could do worse than Van Ruinen. But yeah, I think that's why I like the sevens so much, is so that I don't have to come all the way down here. It gets ugly quick. There's a lot of just random flags. I mean, that's the PGA. There's a lot of qualifiers, quote unquote, out there. So just scrolled past Michael Block. Yeah, will not be playing Michael Block. That dude just annoys the shit out of me for some reason. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm throwing a dart at any of these club pros that made the field.
No, probably not. But I mean, you're playing 100% Scotty. You better find
Yeah,
some of the 5K guys that you want.
I don't think I have to. You can go Scotty and then a bunch of dudes between like 65 and like 79.8. Like
That's fair.
there it's out there. Don't get me wrong. You're living at the bottom there. You got to hit all five of those dudes. But again, pause. But I think there's ways to avoid it.
What about you, Dave? Anybody down there?
Thorbjorn Olesen, I played at the Masters. He shot 61 on Sunday down in Myrtle Beach, finished top 15 or something. But no, not particularly. There's a bunch of names. Luke List, I don't really like much of that. How's the other Højgaard been playing recently? He's at least got some talent down here. But there's a lot of names and a lot of guys who really don't necessarily want to be playing down here.
Pretty
I'm
much.
sure we'll dig up one of these. Yeah, but don't play any club pros. Don't play any of the. I mean, John Daly is 5K flat. I wouldn't recommend doing anything like that. But living in those five, the high fives, there's got to be, some players here. Victor Perez, there's a name. He seems to have been playing pretty well. Gives you some distance. Good on par fives, and decent with his long iron. Actually, not good at all with his long irons, but has been playing much better golf of late.
All right. Well, we wanted to dive into the player pool, kind of go through these guys and just before really building lineups, just kind of get an idea of what we want to pick out here. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. But any final thoughts, Mike?
Not really. This is the last tournament I'm going to watch until the U.S. Open, probably.
Fair enough. What about you, Dave?
I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm echoing Mike's sentiments. Outside of, Sunday golf, we get 4 times a year where all of the best players on the planet get to play in one place. So enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah, it definitely should be a good one. I am very, very excited for it. As far as the other tournaments go, I'll just keep watching them. I'll keep betting on them. I'm basically chasing my losses at this point because I can't win anything. Rory was going to be my bet last week, and then I waited too long, and Ludwig pulled out, so his number cratered, and I didn't get there. And now I'm kicking myself for it. But Mike, Dave, enjoy the PGA Championship, and thanks for joining.
Go anybody but Scotty.
Pretty much. But that's going to do it for this one. So check out theHelmSports.com. I have my preview up there, course preview, recent history, key stats, some golfers to monitor, all that good stuff. That's up on the site now. Check out the Helm Sports on Substack. In the newsletter, I will have my hardcore parkour, all my final thoughts for thoughts for DraftKings and final weather. All that good stuff will be in the newsletter, so definitely check that out. Be coming back tomorrow with Kenny Kim to break down the course, some final thoughts and bets and stuff like that. So check that out. But that's going to do it for this week. As always, thank you for listening. Greatly appreciated. I am your host, Derek Helm, and remember,
Just have fun out there.